Hi, this is Mike Bowen, and it is August 2019. I'd like to talk to you about the Logos Project. The Logos Project is a big ball of things that I've been wanting to do for many years, and I think we've really come to a point at which people understand the subtle nature of what I've been trying to describe is wrong with online and social media. And now is an opportunity, I think, for more people to get involved and for me to collaborate with you. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a business intelligence professional for the past 30 years, and I've been online and programming for a long time. Notably, I was a member of the Well and Panix.com and other online communities like Cafe Etny, where I was the society moderator, and I've also been a commentator on NPR. My online projects are mostly around blogging, and I created Vision Circle as well as the Conservative Brotherhood, my past and current blog Cobb, which has won an award, and my current new project is American WAG, where I'm going to do podcasting and video logs. What I see is wrong with social media is a design problem. I don't think it's so much a problem with the people, but that people have been given tools that try to make them popular and not necessarily correct. And so I started thinking about this problem a long time ago when I was at a blog called Meanderings. And I said, now that people are online, how can we change the way that they collaborate together? And I thought about Robert's Rules of Order, because ultimately people want to create something that's of lasting value, and also, just generally speaking, people ought to have an ability to create their own democratic institutions. So I looked at Robert's Rules of Order and started with a quorum. A quorum is very different when you're on an online space than when you're actually in real life and people physically have to get somewhere. So you can establish a quorum for any subject at any time using the whole of the World Wide Web. But web chat, as it were, and these online communities, and even talk radio, and even interactive talk shows, have never really captured all of the things that all of the people could contribute. And so the Logos Project is a project to develop the right kind of interactive software tools that facilitate online collaboration and findings of fact, disconfirmation, disputation, reputation management, and a host of other tools and abilities that will give us a lot more to do than just thumbs up or thumbs down. So I want to talk about 5 aspects of the Logos project. Each one of them has its own particular strengths and something that it contributes to an overall environment where people can do these collaborations and findings of fact. The first one is called box tag, and it's actually the simplest one, and I think it's something that can be implemented relatively quickly. And the idea is multidimensional karma. Now, many of you have seen things like Slashdot, where there's some work involved in the karma system, but karma just accumulates, and it's kind of static, and most of the time you can just get upvotes. This doesn't do enough for reputation management. It doesn't do enough for disputation and disconfirmation. It basically just makes you more popular or less popular. It's one dimension. So what if we said we'd have 4 dimensions? One of those dimensions could be authority. Someone can say, well, this person makes sense, but I wouldn't consider them authority. Or if someone is just spamming or trolling, you would say that person has lower authority. They still may say something that's valuable, but that's a separate dimension than the value of the comment itself. Another dimension would be interest. A person who's very interested in this, if I say the topic is, let's say, abortion, I may be highly interested in this. And so I would indicate that myself, or someone might indicate that about me. That way you could know whether to take my comments more seriously or less seriously. So the idea of box tag is to add reputational and other dimensional attributes to a karma system that allows people who are not going to write whole essays but just comments more skin in the game in terms of maintaining their reputation. That's box tag, which is the first one. The second one is what I call WWID. And this builds on an old idea that was very popular in the early days of the internet, which was the purity test. I believe there were tests about experience, some of them experiences with sex, some of them experiences with violence, or other bizarre situations. And people would actually take the time to calculate their purity with 200, 300, 400, 500 questions. Well, what if you could do that and own your own data and then share that selectively with friends? That way, you would shortcut the marketing data that's collected about you and maintain your own reputation, not just whether or not you like pizza delivered to your house. So WWID, what would I do, is a large set of questions around ethics and philosophy, beliefs, values, and that gives us more than just left and right, red or blue, Muslim or Christian. It allows you to define your own identity. And of course, we would allow people to submit other questions that they would like other people to ask and answer. And so WWID, again, gives us a great deal more breadth in reputation management. And that's not only good for you owning your own information and deciding which parts of that profile you like public, but also, again, gives people more skin in the game as commenters or just people who are observing. And there's other values as well that I can't immediately bring to mind, but that's part 2 of the Logos project. The third one is X Republic. And X Republic was the original idea that I got that kind of brought this whole thing into consideration, which was, let's talk about the subjects that people like to talk about, and let's bring in experts if we can. My experience tells me that part of the problem with debate and discussion online is that there are certain people with a great deal of experience who run out of patience answering the same question that they answered 2 years ago or 4 years ago. And this happens a lot in just about every place you can go to. And it didn't allow people to maintain a coterie of people that they feel are qualified to talk about a subject and allow the more arcane discussions to take place there, while still handling things for the newbies or people who are hostile to the very idea. And so if you can self-segregate into places where you can decide, even though there's a singular topic, that there are people that you want to talk to and people that you don't necessarily want to talk to, I call those houses. Okay? So you could be a house, and this house self-selects. They can decide who to welcome, or they can say put their banner out there. And these are like, again, giving us the opportunity to be more than left and right. So I envision an agora or a parliament with, let's say, 40 different houses. And I know that there are people who have done some very excellent work in looking at the ideological diversity of the online communities. And they've come up with at least 20 different tribes. And these people within their tribes can work on their ideas and work on their theories. And then each tribe can have a position statement on any particular item of interest and still maintain their conversations, put their best ideas forward with a lot less conflict within the context of a web chat and comments and threads. Okay, so as long as people are within the house, you can do that kind of thing. So X Republic is about letting everybody talk about everything, but also allow you to do wonking for your own house and still talk about subjects that are of interest to all of these ideological houses. And this gives lots of people more ways for them to feel comfortable and even use the term safe space where you can put your ideas forward and then still communicate those platforms to a commons which is available to everyone. That's X Republic. The fourth is an idea straight borrowed from author Neal Stephenson, and it's called the Lorite Interrogator. And the Lorite Interrogator would be an AI interface to WWID that allows you to put forth a bunch of statements of truth that you believe, and then have the Lorite Interrogator ask you questions related to that, and then give you an affinity to various historical figures or historical, political, or social or religious movements where your ideas were shared. So, for example, I might say, I believe that people best contribute to society by doing their own job very well, and then have an open marketplace where the value of that job, which you study assiduously, could be shared with other people. The Lorite Interrogator would ask me a few questions and then immediately say, that sounds like Plato's Republic. And if you go to this place, you can see how Plato was having this dialogue through Aristotle, or however that actually happened. So the Lorites, in the term of Neal Stephenson's book, Anathem, were a part of a monastical tradition, and their job was to know the meta of every philosophy in the history of that civilization. A Lorite Interrogator would then take true or false statements from you along the style of WWID, and then determine where you sit not only among your contemporaries, but among the known history. So that's an interesting project as well. Also part of the Logos project. The fifth and final is something I call Last ID. And Last ID was something that I developed as part of writing a novel that I may or may not ever finish. But the idea is, what if the government or an industry somehow perfected profiling and perfected ID about you? Well, one of the things we know is that you can set up proxies for you that are authorized to do certain transactions over a certain period of time. So an easy way to think about this is, let's say you have your social security number and you keep that to yourself, and on your smartphone you say, I'm going to go shopping today at the mall, and the phone would say, which mall? And I'd say, well, it's going to be the Del Amo Mall in Torrance, California. This is, okay, I know all 150 stores. What are you thinking about shopping for? Well, I need some summer clothes. I might get some flip-flops, and I might get some board shorts, and I might get some bracelets for my daughter. And he would say, Last ID would say, okay, in your current budget, you have about $75 to spend on all of those items. And I found these things for you. Would you like me to pre-authorize your spending for $75? And you could pre-authorize the spending. And the idea is, with Last ID, with every money transaction that you can have a different credit card number, and you can have that credit card be valid only for a day, and you pre-authorize what you might spend. And so Last ID comes up with an idea of circles of trust, and then pre-authorized transactions between those circles of trust, one of which would be shopping. Another which be going to the doctor. And then I could say, if I'm going to the doctor with a cold, I only authorize my medical benefit plan to pay this much, no matter what the doctor may want to send me. So Last ID is an idea of identity management perfected, and that's the kind of thing that you would use as a core ID within the Logos project, because you don't necessarily want to declare everything about yourself to these various entities that facilitate various collaborative transactions and findings of fact. So that's the scope in a brief overview of what's very large and very ambitious, and obviously I can't do it all by myself. But I think this will solve a lot of problems that we have with narrow definitions of ourselves online. And we can't say that we're going to ignore online, and we can't say that we don't want to participate at all, because society is going to participate in this, and you have to have more power over what amounts of information you share with each other, and then what abilities you are given when you go into these public and semi-public spaces. And we can do this with video games, we can do this with AI systems, we can do this with surveillance, but we should do it for ourselves, and particularly we should do it for our democracy, and we should do it for those institutions that depend on us collaborating, finding fact, and sharing those with the public, no matter what our level of expertise. So I hope you'll find this interesting and that you will deliver comments to me. I'm not an academic, I'm a professional, and I have a lot of interest in this. There's some of obviously technical things that I can contribute to this project. I just want to get people interested and understanding that there's something beyond the futility of social media today. My name is Mike Bowen, and I thank you for listening.